Brawl Stars is in trouble. I'm trying not to be too dramatic here, but I think a lot of people just don't recognize what's going on here. I think a lot of what I'm going to say in this video is going to resonate with a lot of people, but not everyone's going to agree with me on every point. If you disagree with me, whether you're a new player or an experienced player, or if you're a Brawl Stars developer, I ask, please just do two things. Number one, please at least be open and willing to change your view. You don't actually have to change your view, but like, give my thoughts an honest chance here, okay? Second thing that I ask is that you take my opinions for what they are. My opinions. I don't know why it drives me nuts, but people seem to assume that I'm either trying to be the voice of Supercell or the voice of the community, and I like doing those things, but that is not my goal of this video. My goal, honestly, is to be 100% honest with my own individual thoughts, and if I'm gonna be a voice of anything, I would like to be a voice of reason. And there are times when the community is unreasonable. There are also times when Supercell is unreasonable, so let's just try and be reasonable here, okay? I passionately want Brawl Stars to be the best game that it can be. I think the fact that my family's livelihood relies on this game's success is genuinely enough proof that I want this game to be great. So let's start by catching everybody up on what's going on in Brawl Stars right now. And make sure you stick around to the end of the video where I will give my 100% honest review. I feel like I'm toying this weird line of like trying to be like really dramatic and serious, but also like myself, which is typically a happy-go-lucky guy. Anyway, let's go. Serious mode. With the most recent update, Brawl Stars released Hypercharges. Honestly, I think the Hypercharges are like, they are a lot of fun. Like if you haven't played Brawl Stars in a while, I highly recommend picking it back up again just to try Hypercharge. They're really cool. You don't have to play long term, but try it out. They're so much fun, but that's not the point. Before getting a chance to play them, there was a lot of community feedback that was, well, there was some drama, okay? Now that people have had a chance to play them, I think that most will actually agree that they're like, I mean, they're fairly balanced. I say that because there's only 6 of them in the game. That's right, only 6 brawlers in the game have Hypercharges and are way stronger than everybody else. But aside from that, they're fairly balanced. They really don't last very long, and you only get to use them maybe once or twice a match, but during those few moments, they're incredibly fun and can be game-changing in a very exciting way, as long as everybody has one. That being said, there are definitely some very fair criticisms. Like I mentioned, there are only 6 of the 72 brawlers in the game that have a Hypercharge. It's incredibly unbalanced. It's not even fair. I don't even think Supercell's trying to convince people that it's fair. It's straight up not fair, which can be fun sometimes, but the thing is you can't even buy them at their lowest cost until 2 weeks after they've been released. I've even seen feedback from people ranging everywhere from them being too boring to even too complex, which is funny because those are like opposites. The point is though, while Hypercharges do make the game more fun, there's been drama. The community has been in uproar, and Hypercharges honestly aren't even the only thing that people have been upset about. In fact, I think most people actually like Hypercharges, but they increase the amount of buffs that your brawler gets when you upgrade them, and what that means is that upgraded brawlers are even more likely to beat under-leveled brawlers. That was definitely controversial. They removed 2 of the daily game mode slots, so instead of being 6 options to play every single day, we're only guaranteed 4. Of course, that's excluding like Power League, Club League, and the Map Maker, and special events and all of that. But along with those 2 event slots being removed, they also made it so the Bounty, Heist, and Hot Zone are no longer in the permanent rotation. And honestly, well, we're gonna talk, I'll share my thoughts on those later in the video. The point is, any one of these changes might not seem like that big of a deal, but combined, people have been very upset. Very, very upset. And I'm probably making this sound way worse than it actually is, but yeah, you got the idea. The thing is though, even if I'm making this seem more dramatic than it actually was, things did get way more heated than I felt like they needed to be. And I do plan on talking about all these changes in this video, but first I want to talk about what happened next. Frank, the game lead on Brawl Stars, tweeted out a massive response post to everybody's feedback, and in his response was confirmation of something that, well, I've been thinking and concerned about for a while, and that is that Brawl Stars is in trouble. Now to be clear, Frank did not specifically say that Brawl Stars is in trouble, but he did talk about the goal of this update and every other update being to change the trajectory of the game. So what is the game's trajectory? Well, Supercell is not giving us actual public information. We don't have those stats specifically from them, but I do think it's fair for us to look at Google Trends, and here is a graph showing interest in Brawl Stars across the whole world for the past 5 years. Right over here is when Brawl Stars went global. Here's May 2020, and all the way through May 2021, 2021 was pretty much the hypest that Brawl Stars has ever been at, which makes sense because COVID was in full swing and people were like stuck at home. They couldn't go to school or work or anything like that. Like, it only makes sense that people would have less time to brawl and the interest would start to decline after people started going back to school and back to work and back to their everyday lives. Gears were released here in November of 2021, and then we saw the game very steadily decline pretty much until they actually removed brawl boxes from the game around here. Now that you can see the overall downward trend of Brawl Stars for its whole history, let's just take a look at the past year. And here's that graph. This is when brawl boxes were removed from the game. As you can see, since then, honestly, the game's interest has, well, it kind of was on a steady decline pretty much until about right here. I should mention that Mastery was released right here in February 2023, a very popular update, at least from the community's perspective. We got tons of resources, progression. There was a concrete goal to actually playing your favorite brawler. And then in April 2023, Bling was released. And Bling was super hyped because pretty much all of the skins that no free-to-play player could ever purchase all of a sudden became available from Bling, or at least most of them did. Both Mastery and Bling were updates that pretty much the whole community loved. General sentiment towards the game, at least from the community perspective on social media, Reddit, Discord, Twitter, whatever, YouTube, everybody was hyped. So you would think the interest in the game would actually increase, right? Well, they didn't. They continued to decrease up until right here. And this is actually something that Frank confirmed in his tweet. Interestingly enough, it was star drops that actually was the first time we saw an increase in Brawl Stars. Look at that. Right here, June of 2023 was actually Brawl Stars' lowest point in the game's entire history since the game went global, and Star Drops was the first thing that actually made an improvement. And this was confirmed not just by Google Trends, but also by Frank as well on his tweet. I find this really interesting because Star Drops, at least on social media, was a very mixed response. In order to add Star Drops, they had to rework a lot of the economy, and this was actually a huge buff progression for a lot of casual players, but it did almost nothing for hardcore players, except it actually removed some of the choice of freedom for these hardcore players, which the hardcore players, the people on social media, Reddit, Twitter, YouTube, whatever, were very upset with, obviously. Despite those legitimate frustrations though, according to the data, not just on Google Trends, but from Frank as well, Star Drops were good for the game. And Brawl Stars really needed it because we were at an all-time low just a few months ago. But it's not like Star Drops saved Brawl Stars, right? The game is still in trouble. Despite a small upward trend from the lowest point in the game's history, if we go back to this chart for the last 5 years, you can see that Brawl Stars was only at 15% of the interest that it had been at its absolute peak. 15%. That's bad. And this is exactly why Brawl Stars is in trouble. And it's a big reason for a lot of the changes in this update, which we'll talk more about that. But if the game continues to lose more players than it actually gains, it's only a matter of time before Supercell essentially has to kill Brawl Stars. Now, some of you guys might say that they would never do that, but guess what? They did exactly that with Boom Beach. They slapped a skeleton crew on there pretty much just to maintain servers, a very small tiny team, and it hasn't received an update in years, except for maybe some like very minor things. Now, I really don't think that's even close to happening with Brawl Stars. Brawl Stars is a very long way from dying, but it's very clear that something needs to change. And after reading Frank's tweet, I'm fairly convinced that the team is, they're probably very aware of this, honestly. Now, we don't know if the most recent update will actually have a positive impact on the game's growth, and we won't know for a while, but my goal for the rest of this video is to review this update based off of whether or not I think it will improve the game's health, because Brawl Stars is in trouble. So let's share my 100% honest thoughts on Hypercharge. I do think that Hypercharge has some flaws, but as a general concept, I love the idea. I have always wanted more depth in the game. I've said this so many times, and Hypercharge, honestly, it really could be the fix for it. It really could be. Having an additional button to basically go like Super Saiyan mode in the middle of the match is so cool. It makes you feel really powerful, strong, and it genuinely makes playing the game more interesting and exciting. Even when you see an opponent activate their Hypercharge, it makes for a really intense moment where you have to really focus on dodging their abilities and prepare to strike back once it's no longer active. Hopefully, if you can, prevent them from like scoring a ball in Brawl Ball or something like that. Now, I know that this might be an unpopular opinion, but I also really like the fact that they last longer if you continue to deal damage to enemies. It makes it very rewarding to use at just the right moment. It really pays for being a skilled player in the game, and it is incredibly satisfying to go on a massive power trip and just wipe out the enemy team and score a goal and win it for your team. Like, it's just really cool. It's so fun. Interestingly enough though, I actually think the most exciting part about Hypercharge themselves themselves is just the speed boost. I do love more damage. Tanking reduced damage is also nice, but there's something so satisfying about zipping around the map like that, dodging left and right between enemy projectiles. Like, it's just the speed buff honestly is the most exciting part, because for the unique buffs for each hypercharge that gives, I'm genuinely among those people that feel like they're kind of boring, okay? Which isn't entirely too bad, because you don't want hypercharges to be like too strong or like way too crazy to understand or something like that. But I was really hoping for hypercharges to just completely change Brawler supers in a much bigger way. If you don't know what they do, let me just quickly tell you. Shelly's super becomes bigger. Okay, well, that makes sense. She's the first brawler you get. She's one of the simplest, so a simple hypercharge makes sense. Colt's super gets bigger. Okay, well, I mean, he's not very rare either. Like, okay, bigger, it's fine. Spike super becomes bigger. Like, you can't make this up. It's just like, what? Bigger is better, but there's certainly more interesting things they could do, I feel like. Literally half of the hypercharges that we got do the exact same thing. They just make your super bigger. And honestly, I would be lying if I said that I thought that that was the best the team could do. You know, I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna say it. Now, I don't think that every hypercharge needs to be like incredibly flashy and crazy and game changing and everything like that. Especially for common brawlers like Colt, Shelly, and Bull, right? Like, they should have something simple. They're one of the first brawlers you're very likely going to max out. But Spike's a legend. They could have done some like really cool things for his hypercharge. Like, what if they made it so the enemies who were defeated while trapped by his super would then spawn cacti where they died, and these cacti would provide some extra cover for Spike and his teammates, maybe even heal his teammates, very much like his plant life gadget or his life plant gadget does, right? That is a cool idea. What if they made it so the Spike could plant himself into his super when he walks onto it, and then his attacks would shoot out twice the number of spikes that they currently do? Like, these are two of the first ideas that I came up with, and I'm sure that they're not perfect, but they sound way more fun than just bigger super. Then you have Pearl's hypercharge, which just doesn't even make sense with her kit. It currently leaves a burning area around where her super is, which is admittedly one of the more unique and transformative hypercharges that we got this update. But her super literally pushes enemies away from her, and the center of the circle happens where she is. So her super literally makes it easier for enemies to escape the burning damage area. In fact, it is possible for her super to literally push enemies outside of the burning area so they take no additional damage. It's just like, I don't know. Like, I do kind of feel like the hypercharges that we got this update were a little bit rushed, and I think there's a very good, reasonable, very good explanation as to why that happened, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. And I really don't want anybody on the team to feel bad or anything like that. Like, they very well could have intentionally made these hypercharges simple. That could be a specific game development decision that they made because they don't want the game to become overly complex. And hypercharges, they already add a whole other layer to the game. So I'm not criticizing their judgment or anything like that, but I just wish that they were more fun. And I don't want them to be like game-breakingly strong and overpowered. But if it was my decision, each hypercharge would change the brawler's super in some way other than just make it bigger. Bigger is fine for some brawlers, but I would want something actually game-changing for most of them. Interestingly enough, I feel like Jackie's hypercharge was the most useful one that we ended up getting because the slow area is just so incredibly massive. It's actually like good for Jackie, and Jackie is one of the least interesting and exciting brawlers to play in the game. How did she get the one hypercharge that's like actually exciting, right? The point is, I just want the hypercharge to be really unique and fun. And Frank said in his tweet that it's when they focus on fun that the game gets the most growth. And I will admit, hypercharges as they are a lot of fun. Even the ones that are just bigger, even Shelly's, even Colt's, even Spike's. In fact, I would argue that hypercharges are the most fun ability in the game. They're more fun than star powers and gears by far. They're even more fun than gadgets. And like, obviously they're more fun than supers because they're literally a souped up super, right? They're like a super duper. It's a super duper super. But like I said, most of the hypercharges really just are fun because of the speed boost and the damage buff. And I think they can make them more interesting and exciting without making them game-breakingly strong. The good news is that we only got 6 hypercharges this update. And I know, yeah, okay, I know I'm laughing, okay? I know you guys think that I'm being like, I'm joking or being sarcastic, but this is actually a good thing. No, for real. It is a good thing. It is a good thing. And if you think it's a bad thing, that is completely fair criticism, and I will talk about that. The fact is, it's the developers' plans to release a few at a time, and that's good for the game. And I want to contrast Hypercharges, as they're being released now, to gadgets when they were first released and star powers when they were first released. When star powers were first released, there were only 27 brawlers in the game, and when gadgets were first released, there were only 29 brawlers in the game. And yes, they were all released all at a time. And you know what? A lot of them were really fun and cool. And to be perfectly candid and honest, I think the developer team did a fantastic job when they released all of them. But a lot of the gadgets and star powers that were first released have been heavily reworked, completely replaced later on, rebalanced, or just straight up are not being used, either because they didn't work well, they weren't interesting, or they just did not fit the brawler's kit. But then you compare that to when second gadgets and second star powers were released, and you know what? There was a huge difference between the two, because instead of releasing them all at once, they just focused on creating a few really good ones and then releasing them as they were made. And because the developers could take their time to make sure that each one was as good as it could be, they were just way better. They were way more fun to play. They were way more interesting. Some of them were weaker than the originals, but you just can't argue that overall, second gadgets and second star powers were just more interesting than the first ones. My hope is that Hypercharges will get a very similar treatment to second gadgets and second star powers, and that is that they will very carefully craft the most interesting ones, the most fun ones, and release them one at a time, not one at a time, but a few at a time as they are actually made, so that it actually makes the game more fun to play, and that Hypercharges, every single one of them, are just great, even if that means they have to redo spikes and pearls. Now, the big issue with doing that is that Hypercharges are only on 6 brawlers, and they are broken. The meta's completely screwed up. There's just no way around it, right? Hypercharges right now, it's just like, it's just better than everything else. And yes, it does suck. In fact, most competitive esports events going on right now, they are just straight up banning every brawler that has them because there's no way to just play the brawler without the hypercharge. And the developers knew that this would happen. So like, why would they release only 6 at a time? And the only other real option, honestly, is to not release them until every brawler has one. And if you'd ask me, I would much rather have 6 hypercharges now and every update than have to wait 1 to 2 years for them to all be released as rushed versions that just are not as good as they could be. This is not like when star powers and gadgets were released into the game. We have more than 2 times the number of brawlers since then. We're getting close to 3 times. I think that we can just bear with an unbalanced meta for a little bit while they keep developing them. It's gonna take some time. Honestly though, I actually really like unbalanced metas. I think they're really fun. And like I said at the beginning of this video, Brawl Stars is in trouble, and it's in trouble right now. We can't afford to wait 1 to 2 years for them to release Hypercharges in a finished state. We need big changes added to the game now to improve its growth. Otherwise, the game might lose just too many players. And guess what? Then they'll have to remove even more event mode slots because matchmaking will get so bad because there just are not enough players to go around. So despite all of the issues with only releasing 6 of them at a time, I think the devs made the right call. It sucks, but it's just what it is. That being said, I really want to see Hypercharges in the World Championship later this year. Hypercharges are so cool, and I would love to see the pros just handle them. I just think that would be so fun and cool, but they can't do that with only 6 in the game. I really hope the developers are able to kick things into really high gear and release like 20 Hypercharges this next update. 20 Hypercharges, that sounds like a lot. I don't know if they can do it or not, but I hope that they can, because that would be so awesome for the World Championship. Which honestly, the World Championship like is important, but it's not as important as the game's overall health over the next several years. But can you blame me for wanting it to be the best it can be now? Okay, let's talk about the biggest pain point of Hypercharge. The cost. Oh yes. They are expensive, and I think they're too expensive. 5,000 coins is a lot. My initial impression was that they're probably about right, but after really contemplating the state of the game's economy and how long it takes for somebody to get 5,000 coins, I'm pretty convinced that they are on the too expensive side of things. In fact, this is a 39% increase in coin cost to have a completely maxed out brawler before versus after with a hypercharge. Now, not all brawlers have a hypercharge, but eventually they will, and the game's economy needs to reflect that. It really does. Otherwise, new players just are never gonna be able to catch up to maxed out players. There's just no way. It's impossible unless they spend a lot of money, but most people can't afford to spend the kind of money that it would take to max out every single brawler in the game with gems. Now, let's be fair here. The game's free-to-play economy it's actually really good, but it's not good enough to handle that 39% increase. One of my golden rules for a game to be free-to-play friendly is that with enough time and dedication, a complete free-to-play player should be able to have just as much power as a paying player. A lot of games that I enjoy playing fail this rule, and therefore I cannot reckon them as a free-to-play game. But let's put that golden rule into perspective for Brawl Stars. I think it's pretty fair to say that each update we're going to get 2 new brawlers and probably 6 hypercharges, right? In order for Brawl Stars to remain free-to-play friendly, in my opinion, a very dedicated free-to-play player would be able to get enough resources to unlock all 6 of those hypercharges and max out more than 2 brawlers every season. Otherwise, they can't catch up. It's impossible for them to do that. If the free-to-play game economy allows for that, even if it takes those free-to-play players years to fully catch up, then I'm satisfied with that. And Brawl Stars would still be able to be called free-to-play friendly because a dedicated free-to-play player could catch up. But if the free-to-play game economy does not allow for that, I can no longer call the game free-to-play friendly because free-to-play players will never be able to catch up to current players or paying players. Now, I have other golden rules or qualifications for me to be able to justify a game as free-to-play friendly, but that's the most important one in my opinion. That's the one that's a concern, at least right now. So the question is Brawl Stars free-to-play friendly still with the cost of hypercharges in the game? And I wish that I could tell you the answer to that. Ever since I started my free-to-play account, I have realized that the game's free-to-play progression is honestly way better than I thought. Thanks to all the random rewards that we get from like special challenges, special events, masteries, other stuff like that, I am progressing way faster on my free-to-play account than I thought was possible. And since I haven't done the math, I can't tell you for sure. My impression is that it's not currently possible and that 5,000 coins is too much. 30,000 gold for 6 hypercharges every update. That's an absurd amount of gold, even if you have the whole season to get it. Even if you just take 1 free hypercharge into the equation, which Frank did specifically say that once every season, one of them would be free, because just very similar to like the hypercharge event that we got this season. Also, you will be able to acquire some of them as star drops, but I don't know if we can really rely on that because star drops happening, they're going to be more rare than gadgets and star powers, right? Like there's just no way that they're more rare. And those happen very infrequently. But yeah, I'm not convinced that the additional gold requirement in order for you to max out your account is like reasonable enough for a free-to-play player to be able to get it. I don't know for sure. We'll have to see. And I'm willing to give them some time, but I'm hopeful that Supercell will actually address this. When asked about the cost, Frank did specifically say that they wanted to start the price high since it's just way easier to reduce the cost of something new once you find out that it's actually too expensive than it is to release it too low and then increase it when you realize that you didn't charge enough for it in the first place, which, you know, I know that sounds silly, but like that is an actual concern. They've also shown so many times in the past that they're willing to correct any mistakes that they make when it comes to the game economy. Additionally, when Frank talked about the future of Brawl Stars, he did talk about wanting to make improvements to Club League so that more people could benefit from it. He also said that they want to make Power League more rewarding to play. And those two areas might actually be a place where they could actually improve the gold economy so that you could actually purchase more hypercharges. Let's also not forget the end of season Brawl Pass rewards that just feel terrible right now. I could see them improving that as well. I'm not assuming they're going to improve the game economy. Like, it's not fair for me to say, oh, don't worry guys, things will probably be fixed later on. That's not what I'm doing right here. But if I'm reading between the lines, I think they're trying to make room for rewards in those areas that they want to improve later on. Now let's talk about the fact that you cannot buy hypercharges at their lowest cost until after they've been available for 2 weeks. Okay. This is just really annoying. It's really annoying. I wish that it were not the case. Honestly though, I genuinely think it's fine. I know that you guys are going to disagree with me. That's completely fine. Just hear me out here, okay? If Brawl Stars wanted to, they could have absolutely locked hypercharges behind a paywall. I'm not saying that it's okay that you have to wait 2 weeks because they didn't make it behind a paywall, but you gotta admit, just look at like Clash Royale or like lots of other mobile games. I don't want to show shade in other games, but like this is what happens in other games. They add actual paywalls. And when I say a paywall, I mean that you cannot have access to content unless you pay for it. Brawl Stars, they were like so cool about this. They're like, you know what? On top of being able to have early access to it with gems, you can also purchase it early with coins and get a bunch of animated pins and stuff like that with them. Sure, it's a lot of coins, but collector's packs can be purchased with coins, which is just straight up unheard of in other games. In fact, buying cosmetics with coins is even the first in Brawl Stars, aside from True Gold and True Silver, which please don't do that. Obviously, most players don't want to have to wait the 2 weeks. I think the community's feedback in this update, or pretty much all the time, really boils down to everyone wanting everything and wanting everything fast and free. That's like what people want. I want that. I would love that. But the game would not survive like that. The game needs some improvements to monetization in order to last a long time. And waiting 2 weeks, it sucks, but it's 2 weeks. It's not bad. One thing that really does suck though is the removal of the 2 game mode slots. On top of that, Bounty, Hot Zone, and Heist are no longer in the permanent rotation. Ah, man. And this just straight up sucks. This sucks. It sucks. There's no way around it. Have I mentioned this sucks because it really sucks. Now they said that this was to improve matchmaking, and it's been interesting. I've been seeing a lot of comments of people saying like, yeah, the matchmaking was only like 3 to 15 seconds. Like, do they really need to like get rid of the 2 event slots to improve matchmaking? I don't know this for sure, but I'm so confident that the #1 complaint that everybody has about Brawl Stars is getting paired up with people way fewer trophies than you, or getting matched up against somebody with way more. Removing those 2 event slots does mean that more players are going to be playing each of the current 4 modes, which will improve matchmaking. There's no way around it. Not just the time for matchmaking, but also the quality of matchmaking. Look at this Google Trends right here. We are at 21% of the game's like golden days. I don't know if that actually translates into only 20% of actual players, but like, you cannot convince me that there are just as many people playing the game now as there were before. That's just, you just can't. You can't convince me. No matter how you look at it, the game has fewer players in it, and it's becoming harder and harder for matchmaking to find you a fair match. Not just quickly, but also a fair match. Whether you like it or not, this is just the reality that we're facing. In an ideal world, Brawl Stars wouldn't have to do this. They would have the most players they've ever had, and this issue wouldn't need to be addressed. They could even add more event slots into the game, but until we have more players, I don't blame the developers for making this change. It sucks. It really sucks. I don't know if there's anything that they can do about it, because people do and will continue to leave the game when they get poor matchmaking. That's just a fact of life. So like, I'm with you guys. It sucks. I just don't know another solution for it. Now let's talk about the power buff increasing between power levels. Before the update, a power 11 brawler was 50% stronger than a power 1 brawler. And after the update, that difference is doubling. So a power 11 brawler is literally 2 times stronger than a power 1 brawler. I feel like I've been seeing, people have been saying that this has been a nerf to free-to-play players. Honestly, I don't view it like that. I really do not. If they would have increased the cost to upgrade brawlers, yeah, that would have been a big nerf to free-to-play players. But upgrading your brawlers costs the same, and guess what? You get that power buff for every brawler you've ever upgraded as well. I completely understand players being frustrated that it will be harder to win matches with underleveled brawlers. That is super not fun. I really get that. But you know what is fun? Being able to play matches with overleveled brawlers and crushing opponents because they haven't upgraded yet, because I don't know, maybe they haven't played as long as you, right? Whether or not it's fair, that is fun. It just is. It just is. Now, this issue would have been a massive issue if they made this change like a year ago. Because a year ago, you could not choose which brawlers to upgrade, at least not like entirely. You had to pretty much upgrade all of your brawlers equally because power points were randomly assigned to specific brawlers. You couldn't just upgrade whatever brawler you wanted. No, you had to hope that you got enough power points on that one brawler so you could then upgrade it. And because it was spread across all of your brawlers, you didn't reach max brawlers until all of your brawlers were reaching max level. Like, it was ridiculous. But now, you can choose to spend all of your resources on over-leveling one brawler. And so, you know what? Unpopular opinion, I don't see an issue with this change. I really don't. I know that plenty of people do. I really understand where they come from. But like if you have an underleveled brawler, just don't play that underleveled brawler. That's really what it comes down to. And if you get a quest for a low-level brawler, then you can just re-roll it, which you shouldn't have to do very much at all, because now we get 3 brawler options for most of our quests now, and one of those brawlers are guaranteed to be one of your low trophy brawlers. Now, I really understand where people are coming from with this change. I really do get it. Nobody asked for this change. It's really annoying to have to get used to the new numbers, but I honestly just don't think this is as big of a deal as people are making out to be. And honestly, if I disagreed with this change, I would just tell you. Even the argument that like one of the things that people love most about Brawl Stars is the fact that you can out-skill an over-leveled brawler, and now that it is actually harder for you to do that's the same thing now, except for guess what? Now it is twice as hard for you to out-skill an over-leveled brawler, which yes, it's harder, but it's twice twice as rewarding when you get to do it. Like, it's more fun and exciting to beat somebody because you're just straight up better than them. And honestly, I genuinely think that it should feel great to get stronger when you upgrade your brawlers. Upgrading a brawler from power 1 to power 2, it didn't feel like anything. It really did not. And if you are telling me that you thought that it did make a big difference, I would say that I don't want to call you a liar, but it really just did not make big of a difference. And upgrading a brawler from power 10 to power 11 made even less of a difference because of how the buffs between levels actually work. Honestly, on my free-to-play account, I pretty much only upgraded my brawlers to power 7 just to get a gadget. And I did not upgrade them for power 7, I did it for the gadget. Power levels were just a way to get to the gadget. Now, once my brawlers were closer to 500 trophies, I did feel the need to upgrade my brawlers past level 7 up to power 9 because I was starting to face players that were maxed out, and those 4 levels of difference did start to feel like they were a little bit too much. But even when I was just power 9, that's still 2 levels away from max, and that still just felt pretty fine. And you know what, now that fewer brawlers are getting reset with every single trophy league season, brawlers around 500 trophies are just not as maxed out as they used to be. So if you guys disagree with me, I'm totally fine. Just consider my thoughts here and keep listening here. I love games that reward me for putting time into it. It's a huge reason why I hated Gears so much when they were first released, because they were way too crazy expensive. They did not provide enough value until they were reworked everything, and then eventually they were just like, okay, I'm fine with Gears. They're not great or anything like that, but like, it's not a big deal, whatever. And on the flip side, that is one reason why I'm so excited for Hypercharge. I do think they're expensive, but I think they're really cool, and adding another ability that rewards you for sticking to the game long term and really pouring your time into upgrading a brawler, that's fun. That's exciting. Now, to be clear, I don't like power just for the sake of power levels. Like, I think that when Brawl Stars added a level 11 into the game, it was a mistake. They should have just upgraded brawlers to power 10, and that should have been the max. And if Brawl Stars just was like, hey, Kairos likes more power levels, he likes more progression, let's add power 12 into the game, I would be upset. I would be very disappointed. That's not what they did, though. They're not charging anything more. It doesn't cost more to max out your brawlers. They just made brawlers that are upgraded, that you already have upgraded, stronger. Now, I don't want them to further increase the buffs to upgrade your brawlers. Like, just to put this into perspective, like, let's just say each power level was 10 times the stats. There would absolutely no chance that you could outskill an opponent. And I think that there needs to be a line drawn somewhere, but I don't think that Brawl Stars crossed that line this time. It's fine if you disagree with me. I'm really okay with that. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but it is genuinely my own opinion. It's not Supercell's, it's not the community's, obviously. Like, I'm just trying to be logical about this and share my thoughts, and that's how I feel about it. A very unfortunate result of this change, though, is that the balance for a lot of gadgets and star powers, they're just, well, the balance is not good anymore. Any of them that had specific damage amounts or specific shield amounts or health amounts or whatever got a 33% nerf, basically, and this is also true for the shield gear. Now, in an ideal world, all of them would have been rebalanced before the update went live, but when it comes down to it, this update was rushed. Let's just be honest here. I'm sure that many of you guys are aware, but Finnish law requires full-time employees to take 1 month off during the summer. 1 month of vacation for all Brawl Stars employees. And since the last update, pretty much the whole team took a month off, which means that they, instead of having 2 months, they only had 1 month to prepare for this update. I am sure, I'm confident, I can guarantee you guys that Supercell would have loved to have released more Hypercharges this update. They would have loved to rebalance all of the gadgets and gears. They would have loved to have spent more time on bug fixes, made economy improvements to make room for Hypercharges, get everything tweaked and just perfect as it was. But I honestly just don't imagine they had enough time. I'm not making excuses for the Brawl Stars team. I'm not even trying to defend them. I'm just trying to like be logical about the situation that we're in. And you know what? It sucks, but I'm confident that they will fix it. I'm confident that they will. I'm good with the team taking some time off. Honestly, I think they did an amazing job with this update, considering the fact that they literally had half of the time to work on it to release it. Like, we could cut them some slack. And if you want to just blame them, then that's fine too. If you don't feel like they deserve a vacation and they just need to spend some time with their families, then well, actually, I do have a problem with that. Don't feel that way. They are people too, okay? Also, I don't like how they address token doublers in star drops. Everybody was like, we're getting way too many token doublers. This is way too many token doublers. Like, come on, give me something other than token doublers. And so they were like, cool, we'll reduce the number of token doublers that you get. And I just assumed that that meant we would get token doubler drops less frequently, meaning that we would get more of other drops more frequently? I was wrong. I'm sorry for assuming that, guys. I should have double checked because we kind of got duped. They were like, oh, you want fewer token doublers? Okay, we'll just nerf the amount of token doublers that you get from star drops. Like, you're still gonna get token doubler star drops just as frequently as you did before, but we're gonna give you less. Yeah, that's what happened. I just felt like that was not cool. I'm sorry. It's just, which if they would have like specifically outlined it and said, hey, I'm sorry, guys, token doublers, we messed up. We put way too much in there. We are going to just like decrease the amount of that you get when you get token doubler star drops. Like, I really don't think that they were being malicious about this at all. I think they could have done a better job of just being honest with us and just saying, hey guys, you guys are getting too money. We're just gonna nerf it. I'm sorry, this is a nerf, but I'm sorry. Okay, this update. Oh, I've been recording for an hour. This is so crazy. I still have more to talk about. I'm going to rate this update. There's something else that I really want to talk about right now. And this is gonna feel a little bit off topic of Brawl Stars, but it's not. Well, kind of. I don't know. We'll see. I really don't want to be ranty, but I have been seeing this very obnoxious trend in live service games in general. Live service games, if you guys don't know what it is, it's pretty much any game that continues to get new updates, you know, as it goes. And typically a lot of these live service games rely on microtransactions, which, you know, I mean, that's what Brawl Stars is, right? We're talking about Supercell games. We're talking about Fortnite. We're talking about World of Warcraft. Any other game that relies on frequent updates and changes and a player base that is continuing to play a long time. Instead of like a game where you would just like purchase it outright and then that's the game and you've got it forever and then that's all. Okay, so now that you know what a live service game is, let's talk about something that this drives me nuts. We're gonna talk about the door in the face technique. There's a whole Wikipedia article. There's a whole lot of information on there that's way more official than what I'm gonna say. Let me share my understanding of the door in the face technique. This is basically where one person goes to another person and offers them something just outrageous. It's way too much to ask for. And then when the second person's like, whoa, that's way too much, then they go to them with a second offer that is lower. And because the second offer is lower than the first, it has been shown that that actually increases the likelihood of that second person accepting the second offer, even if they would not have accepted it in the first place if they were not shown the outrageous offer that was first given, right? When it comes to live service games, this is like when a developer releases some shiny new content or something that's way too overpriced or is incredibly unpopular, very hugely flawed, to which the community then goes and gets very outraged and says, this is ridiculous. Do they even play their own game? And then the developers are like, whoa, guys, we're so sorry. We didn't understand. We didn't know what was going on here. Let's make some improvements. Let's fix that issue that we intentionally added into the game. And then for the community to turn around and say, oh, you guys are so awesome. This is so fantastic. Thanks for listening to us. You guys do such a good job at listening to our feedback. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that this is actually what's happening in Brawl Stars, but I've been seeing this in other games and in the live service game as an industry in general. And honestly, I'm getting kind of tired of it. I really am. It is emotionally exhausting for the community to be like all way up and then way down and way up and way down. I genuinely don't think that it is healthy for any game. The sad truth about the door in your face technique is that it works. Even in gaming, we see that it works, at least temporarily. We saw it, I mean, I'm not saying that this is what Brawl Stars did maliciously. I'm not saying that, but we did see it when they released gears and everybody hated them. And then later on, they fixed the economy. They improved gears to make it so that they're not as bad as they were. And then people were like, okay, we're fine with gears. When honestly, if you look at gears now, they're just not as good as what they could have been. I actually like the gadget gear more than any other gear in the game probably because it improves gadgets, which gadgets are so fun. Now, like I said, I don't think that this was done intentionally by Brawl Stars, but it is what happened. I really love the Brawl Stars team. I genuinely think they have the game's best interests at heart. They've shown it so many times in the past, and I'm not just saying that. The point that I'm trying to make here, though, is that the door in the face technique does have a limit in live service games. It only works for so long, and I have absolutely seen it destroy communities. It's an unhealthy relationship. It's toxic. Let's just throw out some other random game developer out there. They do something dumb only to fix it later. It dissolves the community's trust for them just a little bit. Maybe they gain that trust back, most of it, but it's still dissolved a little bit. Even if all the community issues are addressed and fixed later on. And the more the game developer uses this technique, more and more trust gets broken. They release something broken, then they fix it. They release something that isn't complete, and then they patch it later. They release an update geared toward heavy monetization only to increase progression in a future update. Little by little, piece by piece, more and more trust is lost over time until there's nothing left. I've seen this so many times in other communities, and like I said, it is exhausting, and I do not want it to happen to Brawl Stars. It's honestly not any different from being in an abusive relationship with somebody that keeps hurting you and apologizing and saying that they'll change, and then they hurt you again, and then they say they'll change, and then they hurt you again and again and again and again. And I genuinely believe people can change, and I genuinely believe in forgiving people for when they make mistakes. But there does come a point where trust is too far gone to be restored. Now, let's circle back to Brawl Stars. I've been saying this whole time that I don't think this is what is happening with Brawl Stars. I've had really great one-on-one conversations with many of the developers, and they genuinely are so passionate about making the game as good as it possibly can be. They've made mistakes, like we all do. And just like I think we all deserve some room for mistakes, I think that they do too. After all, some of their least popular updates have actually been massive successes in the game. But while I don't think this is happening in Brawl Stars, or I would at least like to think that it is not, I have seen enough things be released not complete or in ways that aren't like 100% how I would like them to be, that I'm kind of on high alert for Brawl Stars, if that makes sense. This is part 2 of why I think that Brawl Stars is in trouble. I'm not trying to be dramatic or anything like that. In fact, it's actually very unhealthy for me to talk about negative things on Brawl Stars on YouTube, because what if somebody watching this video right now is hearing this and they're like, yeah, oh man, screw this game. I'm gonna never play it again and never watch KairosTime either because he makes Brawl Stars content. And when I'm not playing Brawl Stars, I have zero interest in watching his content. Like, it's very dangerous for me to even talk about this, right? This whole video series about me being 100% honest is about being honest and just sharing my thoughts. And I really think that this right now is a turning point for Brawl Stars. This update is either going to set the game up for success and we'll start seeing some growth, or the game is going to continue trending downward until it is eventually killed. I am not feeling panicked about the game right now. I'm actually feeling really good about the game, and I'm going to rate this update specifically, but I felt like I had to get that off my chest. I just had to say it. I'm not talking about Brawl Stars, but I'm pretty sick of this abusive relationship that a lot of other games have with their communities. It's just, like I said, it's exhausting. It's not fun. And I genuinely believe that the developers from Brawl Stars are passionate enough and really care enough to make sure that this doesn't happen for Brawl Stars. So there are some random thoughts. This is the point in the video where I would normally rate the update on a scale from 1 to 10. And honestly, I have really come to hate this part of the video. It has caused way more grief for me than I feel like it should. If I rate the update too high, according to some people's opinions, they assume I'm being paid off by Supercell, which is straight up just ridiculous. It's completely false. But if I rate the update too low, then people think that I don't have hope for the game, which is also not true. Then there are people that don't watch the video and just ask other people what I rate it, and instead of listening to my thoughts, they just assume that I'm a psychopath for not rating it however they would like to rate it. So I'm just not going to rate this update on a scale from 1 to 10 this time. And if somebody asks what I rated them, just tell them to watch the video. Maybe I'll give an actual number rating again in the future, but the discussion around this update was just way too divisive for me to feel comfortable giving an actual numerical rating, because numerical ratings, let's be honest, how do you average out all of the negatives that happen with this update with all the positives that came with this update? And like, I just feel like I don't want to deal with the grief of people saying that I'm not being honest with my thoughts when that's what this whole video is about. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to quickly list things I would like to see Supercell change, and then I'm going to review this update based off of whether or not I think it will improve the game's health, which is exactly what we've been talking about this whole time. As for changes, I would like more exciting hypercharges to be added into the game, potentially even spikes to be rechanged into something more fun and exciting that Spike really deserves. I'd either like to see the coin cost of hypercharges decrease, or I'd like to see a buff to the total gold progression in some way, whether that's Club League, Power League, or season bonus rewards, star drops, or some other way. I would really like it to happen in the next update. I still think the end of season bonus rewards need some sort of a buff. I'd also like the amount of token doublers that we get from token doubler star drops increase to what they were, but then decrease the frequency of when token doubler star drops happen so that we get more of the other resources coming from star drops. And also, even though I didn't mention this at all in this video, I would still be incredibly grateful if Supercell allowed us to stack star drops so that we can open them for later. Obviously, the developers are already aware that the damage-based gadgets and star powers need buffed by 33%. On top of that, if there's any way that they can further increase the number of players in the game so that we can add at least one daily event slot back into the game, that would be nice. I mean, I think their whole goal has been to increase the number of players, so hopefully they're successful in that. Just felt like I wanted to mention it because that is a pain point for this update. So the important question after an hour and a half of recording. Do I think this update will improve the game's health? And the answer to that is a big fat yes. Clearly, I have my grievances with this update, but I don't think that the developers entirely missed the mark. I think that they hit the mark. Overall, I think Hypercharges are so much fun. They give players a worthwhile goal to work towards, which is so much fun, and they have insane potential to bring Brawl Stars to the next level. I'm so excited to see what they have in future for future Hypercharges and for what they have in the future of the game. Like, I have so much hope, so much passion, so much excitement for Brawl Stars in the game. I'm loving playing it more now than I ever have, and that is the truth. Even after 6.5 years of playing the game is in the best state that it's ever been. Maybe not player-wise, but as far as my personal experience playing it, I love it, except for the fact that there's only 6 Hypercharges in the game, but we've already talked about that. And whether or not Brawl Stars remains to be in trouble after this update is something that we're only going to know with time, but those are my 100% honest thoughts. They're not Supercell's thoughts, they're not even the community's thoughts, and if you still disagree with them after watching this video, I really just want to thank you for taking the time to listen, and I do respect your opinion if you disagree with me, I really do, so please respect mine for it being mine. Also, if you've gotten this far into the video, I would love to read your thoughts, so please drop a comment with #honest at the beginning of the comment section so I know that you actually watched it. And if you've already commented, feel free to edit your comment with that hashtag so I'm more likely to see it. Okay, that's the video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Whoa!